All right, Ben Stanley, can you hear us on Zoom? This is a check for sound. Can you hear us, Ben?
I see Ben Benoit on here, but not Ben.
Ben Benoit, if you're on there, maybe you can.
I can hear you, Commissioner.
Okay, there we go. All right, Alice, are we ready? Go ahead and you got the button pushed. You ready to go? Okay. Welcome this afternoon to our Board of County Commission meeting. As always, we start with a prayer, a reading, or a thought, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And we look to the audience for any volunteers who would like to participate with us and either offer that prayer, reading, or thought, or Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any volunteers that would? Yes, which one? Prayer? Okay, we got the prayer, thank you. Anybody like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, thank you. Come on up for the prayer and then just follow them up for the pledge. If you would just state your name too, that way we can get you on the official record.
Yeah. Stephen Call.
Thank you.
Okay. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be here. We are grateful to live in a country where we can express diverse opinions and do it peacefully and with kindness in our hearts. We are grateful for the mission of thy Son, Jesus Christ, who taught us how to do that. We pray that we may remember him, that we may remember our injunctions to follow his example as we discuss today and as we have and see the diversity of opinions that may be here. We pray for these good people. They are all good people, and pray that thy Spirit will guide us as we discuss these circumstances and situations that affect so very many of us. We ask this blessing in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tell us your name.
Caleb Choke.
Thank you. Thank you, Caleb. Steve. Thank you, Caleb and Stephen, for participating with us in that. Before we organize our agenda, Commissioner. Oh, Commissioner, sorry. I couldn't remember who had what.
We have recognition for the Employee of the Month. And our Employee of the Month this month is from the Health Department, and it is Jennifer Floyd. So I'm going to read a little bit about Jennifer and why she was chosen as Employee of the Month and what an asset she is to the county, and then we'll take pictures and we'll ask you to say a few words. Jennifer has worked with the Health Department for 10 years. She started as a WIC health aide and has worked her way up to senior WIC health technician with responsibilities of WIC outreach coordinator. The outreach task comes about as she saw a need and proposed a solution to help the WIC program grow and progress. It's not often you find somebody who sees a need and expands their own job responsibilities to pick that up voluntarily. And I think that shows a lot about who she is and how she is, that she saw that need and picked up those responsibilities into her job. For the past year, Jennifer has developed a presence on social media for Utah County WIC on Facebook and Instagram. Their Instagram and Facebook followers have grown by over 7 times. Under her planning, they've increased their social media presence, which has been very good during COVID because it helps keep those who need those WIC services informed, which is absolutely fantastic. She's also worked to create videos in both English and Spanish to help serve the entire community. Jennifer has created new outreach materials and made them available for pediatricians' offices and presented to mother-baby units in hospitals and to other medical establishments, helping those medical establishments know what services WIC has to offer so that they can recommend them to people who are getting health care that need those services and helping us better serve the community in need. Jennifer is also collaborated with many community partners and has helped WIC and the health department have a presence at community events. Everything from the Alpine School District Mental Health Night and a Teen Health Summit to BYU International Student Orientation and Centro Hispano Family Fun Day. She is a talented trainer and presents on many topics in staff meetings, from customer service to required civil rights training. She's always make the topics interesting and personal so that people remember them. She inspires the rest of the staff, and she always has a go-to attitude. I'm going to read a little story that I thought was just fantastic. It says, Jennifer worked well with women, infants, and the children we serve. An example was a time when Jennifer noticed a mom with a brand new baby and 3 older children who was having a hard time talking to a dietitian. She gladly got permission and took the older kids out of the room to pick stickers. They all sat on a bench together to read a story and then checked out the sticker collection some more until the mom had finished receiving the advice and resources that she needed in a quiet room with no distractions. It's a great example of going above and beyond and serving the citizens of our county. So Jennifer lives in Payson with her contractor husband and 4 talented children. And I'm sure that after reading all of this, it will not surprise you that Jennifer enjoys being outdoors, hiking, and is always up for another marathon race. So even after serving all of our citizens, she still has the energy to run a marathon. Jennifer is a firecracker. She's dependable, responsible, and dedicated in learning and carrying out her responsibilities in the Payson Clinic and with the management team. It is a pleasure to work with Jennifer. Thank you for everything you do, Jennifer. Come say a few words, and then after that, we're going to get a picture with you, and we'll give you your certificate.
Well, I am so honored and surprised. It's a real honor, and I think I jumped up because I thought maybe I needed to escape. And the other word for people who try to find more ways to put work into their job is nosy busybodies. So just warning you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll stand right here in front and get a picture. Yeah, they'll do a portrait and then
All right, fantastic. If you want to see our employees of the month and employee of the year, we have a whole wall out there dedicated to them. They do a great work. Now we'll go through and organize our agenda, and just kind of give you an idea of how we organize it. You'll notice on our paper that we have a consent agenda with nothing listed underneath it. What we are planning on doing, and which we've done in the past, is that we fill that agenda with items that we have individually looked at and we agree to, or either ratify or approval. And so if we all agree to it, we'll place it on the consent agenda by not holding it. So if we hold an item, that means that we're going to have discussion and talk about it, and it will stay on the regular agenda. So with that, let's start with our regular agenda items 1 through 10. Are there any items that need to be held for discussion?
I have none.
I have none, only that item 10 is a grant-funded program that we use for all diseases.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a reimbursement. How about items 11 through 20?
I would like to continue item number 11 until next week so I can get more information on that.
Okay.
I'd like to make that as a motion, but I'd like to second the motion because there's some additional information I'd like to have on that
Okay.
from reading the content, I don't quite capture it all.
And I agree with that too. So all three of us are in agreement with that. We'll continue that to the next meeting.
Item number 15, I think we need to discuss and give direction on that proposal.
Yep. So we'll hold item 15.
Yep.
Any other items to number 20?
And the
Okay.
deputy clerk, that's not chief deputy clerk, that's just one of the many
That's
clerks?
just deputy clerks. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any others.
Okay, items 21 through 30. I don't have any.
I have none.
Okay. Items 31 through 38.
I think we need to hold 31, 32, and 33 for action. Actually, we probably don't need to hold 32 if everyone agrees on that one. 31 we'll need to hold, but I'm fine with 32 as it sits.
So to
So just
clarify,
30. So
31?
hold 31 and 33.
31 and 33 you'd like to hold?
Yeah,
32, would you like to hold 32 at all?
I think it's fine.
I'm happy to hold that.
You want to hold 32?
I'm fine not holding. I'm fine
Okay,
just approving it on consent.
yeah, no, I read through it and I can go
So
with that.
31 and 33.
31 and 33 will hold. And then items 39, 40, 41, and 42 are our closed meetings.
I mean, Dave, you didn't know a need for any. I think we may need, I think you had said we wanted 39.
I have, I think, one item for 39.
39, and I need to have some discussion on 40.
40?
Brief discussion on 40.
Okay. So we can strike
So we can strike,
41 and 42.
so we'll leave it on consent to strike item number 41 and 42, and we'll leave it on consent that we have approved and set a date, time, and location. The location is here at this place, following our meeting for items number 39 and 40, if that's amendable. Okay. All right, Alice, go ahead and recapture that for us.
Okay, I have us continuing item number 11 to next week, holding number 15, holding number 31, 33, holding the closed meeting number 39 as stated, 40 as stated, striking 41 and striking 42.
Okay, thank you. So just to recap, those items that we held, and there was only a handful of them, will be our meeting for today in the sense of what we'll go to, and then we'll have obviously our public comment and so forth afterwards. The rest of the items were either ratified, agreed to, approved, or as stated in the agenda as on consent. So those have already been agreed to. So with that, we'll move to item number 15. And Robert?
Robert Baxter, Purchasing Manager. This was an RFP for a professional architectural services. It was a little unusual in that the RFP allowed for a multi-award contract. So the evaluation committee looked over the four proposals that we received. They were CRSA, FFKR, GSBS, and JRCA. Apparently, it's a requirement that you have a four-letter designation to be an architectural firm. Who knew?
Right.
But they found that all four of them met the qualifications. But they found that some had qualifications in one area as opposed to another. So they'd like to enter into contracts with all four of them, and then decide which one to use based on their availability, relative qualifications, and cost.
And this is part of the capital improvement program that we've got set up, or this other projects as well?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a long list.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's both.
Okay.
So I would like to make a suggestion to the commissioners. Thank you, Robert, on that. In the letter that was sent to us, there's some wording that I'd like to change just for clarification purposes. It's the last the last sentence, it says the committee recommends awarding the contract to all 4 firms, which I agree with. And then, well, I think then the sentence says, contracts for individual projects will be determined by cost, which I agree with too. The firm's availability and the relative qualifications of the firm for the specific project. What I'd like to change it to say is individual projects will be determined by cost and the firm's availability to complete the projects as determined by Public Works and the Commission. And I specifically am naming Public Works and the Commission in this as a change. And then also adding on there that all 4 firms will be given the opportunity to bid on the project, understanding that they may have specialties, but I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to look at it, and that then Public Works and the Commission, as it comes back, kind of on a transparency basis, so we don't think that there's any one picking over the other or anything like that they all 4 have an opportunity to bid on it, since we're accepting them as qualified architects. And second, that it comes back to Public Works and Commission through a process to pick that firm for the appropriate project.
That sounds, Robert, Robert,
Exactly.
that goes without saying for you, though, it doesn't it? The Public Works is part of this process.
Well, yeah,
But you put in
Yeah.
the letter, at least brings it out in the light that that's who's
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, are you okay? Richard says he's okay with that.
Okay. Yeah.
So if we could just add that in so that becomes the process, which I think is normal. I mean, it's not like it's out of normal, but I think I just wanted to see it in writing so it's understood.
Okay. No, I can go
Yeah,
with
if
that.
Richard's good with that, I'm okay with those changes. So I'll make a motion to accept and approve item number 15 with the stated changes.
And I can second that motion.
Yeah, I got a motion and a second that we've received the recommendations that we have. I hate to be adding words if I'm not, but the ones that are stated on our agenda are the ones that we are accepted with some of the changes noted. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, number 31 is to deny or approve an ordinance to amend the following sections: 14.12-C.9 of the Utah County Land Use Ordinance. The request is to remove the requirement for a planned subdivision to provide a certification that the land being subdivided are free from invasive and noxious weeds. I know it went through our planning commission. Go ahead and speak to it.
Sure. So it did go through our planning commission. Our planning commission of 7 members voted 7-0 to recommend denial of the application. I have a long staff report. I can go through that if you want, or if you have questions, I can go through. If it may be easier for you to just ask questions, I can answer those as well. Kind of at your pleasure.
As I read this, it shows that as long as the intent and the effort to control noxious weeds is what the emphasis of this update is.
Sure. So there are kind of a couple intents. So the original intent, so when this ordinance was put in place in 1996, it was at a time when the 40-acre, the area that most of the development is happening in the farmland, was 40-acre minimums for dwellings. That was being considered to be changed to a 5-acre minimum, and then was changed. This statute was put in place to provide assurances to adjacent farmland to prevent the spread of noxious weeds. Since that time, there have been a couple changes to that, as I identified in the staff report. The biggest thing today is that this does give us an opportunity to look at the property at the time that this changes from a mainly agricultural use to a more residential use. And also, at the time of the inspection, it gives us an opportunity to kind of educate those people that are taking over the property about the noxious weeds that may be present and how to mitigate those responsibly.
So right now, does it say that it has to be completely free of all noxious
It
weeds?
does not. It's just a noxious weed certification, which means that there are standards that initially, when this was first instituted, it was done through private agencies that were approved by the weed board to go out and do these inspections. Currently, because there weren't qualified or certified inspectors, the county has now taken it over. The weed control in Public Works is doing those inspections. They have kind of a standard, and there are certain weeds that if there are any present, then they will fail. But those are classifications that the state is very concerned about. The other classification, there are certain classifications or certain types of weeds that if there are some presence, the inspector will educate them, ask them to try and mitigate those, but still will pass that inspection. Obviously, being free of all noxious weeds is kind of impossible for all farmers to do that. However, at the Planning Commission, one of our planning commissioners, Robert Mullen, who is a farmer, has orchards, expressed his concern that this would go away because it does help. He believes that it does help prevent the spread of noxious weeds onto his property, where he has to spend additional monies to be able to mitigate those weeds that are coming from other people's properties.
So on those areas that it requires 100% removal, are there options to obtain that level without spraying
There are
herbicides?
Yeah, and the weed control does help them to identify those types of options. There are many different, and I probably am not the best one to speak to this, but there are a lot of different options that they can. There are organic herbicides. There are also other herbicides that they can use that aren't. I believe that there are opportunities for them to also, depending on the extent of the danger, they can also just manually remove them as well.
So my issue with the code as it's written currently is with those requirements of 100%. I think the recommendations typically coming from the weed specialist is to spray chemicals. And I have a real problem with we as a government entity requiring people to use chemicals and poisons on their private property.
Right.
So I am not inclined to vote for anything that would require people to spray chemicals and poisons on their own property. So as I look at this, I see an approve or deny. And what I would like to see is maybe an amendment that says, I agree. I mean, I've owned a farm. I owned a farm until 2017. And I agree that noxious weeds on other people's property come onto your property and you have to deal with them. And I am very cognizant of that and aware of that. However, I'm not willing to require anybody to spray a poison on their own property. So what I would like to see is language that talks about that you have taken a certain amount of effort to remove those weeds before certification. And so I've kind of, like I said, I definitely understand the idea of removing the weeds and not having noxious weeds, and I understand that there are some weeds that the state is more concerned about. I personally think that goat heads, the only way to get rid of them is an exorcism.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
if my neighbors have goat heads, then I'm tempted to hire a priest for them. So I get it, but I'm also not willing to require anyone to spray chemicals on their own property.
True. There is no requirement that chemicals are sprayed. It just says that they have to mitigate those weeds. It is up to them how they mitigate those weeds. This also, the ordinance is probably not, this ordinance is probably not the best place to do that. That is handled through the weed board. The weed board has a process to go through that inspection, and that the properties do not need to be 100% weed free. And the means of removing those, again, are not necessarily through chemical means, but it does, the state has mandated that the county take the noxious weed the noxious weeds problem seriously, and has mandated those types of, has identified noxious weeds that need to be mitigated. Even if we do not have this in the ordinance, there still is the nuisance ordinance that nuisance code in our county code that also requires people to maintain their weeds, and they would still be required to do that on their own. So
I just like the term maintain your weeds. I think that's a little bit of an oxymoron.
So
yeah, sorry.
So I'll make a recommendation, just to point out a few things. This is a Utah County land use ordinance, and so it's gone through its channels, the proper channels, with the Planning Commission doing a recommendation. There's a couple options I think that we as a commission have, which I feel that we could exercise. One, because it is a Utah County land use ordinance, we could modify and change right here on the spot.
Sure.
And I'm not prepared to do that. I think that it would take a little bit more time to kind of look at that. Or we could send it back to the Planning Commission with some very specific directions in to look at areas, and then come back to us again with some thoughts. And I get what Commissioner Gardner's saying. You know, it looks like it's coming with a very defined, maybe narrow look at it. That's why we have the denial, because it looks to me like they're saying either you have the certification or you don't have the certification. Well, what about all the in between? It's always some of the nitty gritty that I think we might want to say, and I'm just recommending this, that we say, let's send it back to the Planning Commission, and then the commissioners can maybe give them more specific direction on what we'd like them to look at.
Yeah.
I understand. Again, just to be clear, the certification is just this is not the process of approval. It's just the paper they get after they've gone through the process of getting that inspection done. And there are going to be properties that are in between, as you expressed. There's still opportunities for those people that are in between to pass and get that certification. It's, again, I want to be clear, it's not 100% free of weeds, because you're not going to get there. This is only saying that you have to go through that process of certification, get this certification in order to do that. And also, just to be clear, there in the time that we've had responsibility for this, there have only been two times that someone has failed. To be clear, and so we've done multiple certifications. There are only two times that this has failed. The current applicant, and then there's one that was recently failed as well. So, in my opinion, I believe this is working, and there aren't going to be weed-free properties out there, but they're still getting passed and they're still getting through the process.
Yeah, well, and I think the issue comes that in the other people that passed, many of them were just fine spraying chemicals on their property for those weeds that we want.
Sure.
Right. And what the person this applicant is very sensitive to chemicals and doesn't want to spray chemicals, and I'm very sensitive to that.
And they've gone through this process more than one time before. They've gone through the subdivision process and the noxious weed certifications at least 2 times prior to this, and have not failed.
So my question is, what changed?
The change that happened was that they tilled their field, and tried to plant grass, but weeds came up, and the weeds that came up were noxious weeds, and they weren't maintained.
Yeah, if you live in Spanish Fork, I have 4 different kinds of grasses because of the winds, and that happens. And the noxious weeds still come up after 16 years. And this was an attempt to make it so that it's not burdensome on the owner,
Let's pull him up.
because that individual's trying to take care of the noxious weeds. If there's some language issues on this, should we continue this?
Well, I mean, we may go that direction. I know that the applicant is on Zoom, and I did see another hand. Are you still wanting to speak to this? So on this agenda item, let's go with Robert Stevens. He's online, and we'll let him speak to it. And then I've got a gentleman here, and then if you'd like to speak to it afterwards, you can. Robert, are you there?
I am. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. In this situation, we hired excavators to clear our land. And if you saw after that, you would have thought that all plant life was removed. After that, we had it sloped of such that on a 5 1/4 acre lot, one side is 3 feet higher than the other. That's how much dirt was moved around. And if that wasn't enough, we had it laser leveled and disced. All 4 of those should have passed a noxious weeds inspection. And so you ask, what is different? Well, in the past, for all the noxious weed inspections we've had, Lanty or the other person who was in charge said, look, I'm looking for noxious weeds which are like 3 feet high that are just obvious, you know. And in our situation, we had none of those. But not having the benefit of living on the land like all the farmers around us, we don't have a chance to go there and get down on our hands and knees for 40 acres and pull every new weed start along fences, along the road, along the irrigation ditches and the slough. When we get a chance to live there, you know, if that's the requirement, then we'll do that. But there's absolutely no way we can do that now. And if we request for herbicides to be sprayed, there's no way we'll ever live there because, you know, my wife is very sensitive to that. So I looked at this as the inspector thought that looking for new starts means that it should be denied. And you know what? In the county, if I did the math on this, and 60 acres is less than 4.5 thousandths of 1% of all the land. And so it's easy for a person in the city who's surrounded by, you know, thousands of people who are anxiously working on their lot and removing all the weeds to say, well, if you're going to get a new subdivision approval, then you should have your lot completely 100% cleared of noxious weeds. But in the county, where you're surrounded by thousands of acres, and rarely anyone is working on their noxious weeds, and they blow in from the wind and all sorts of reasons, it's almost impossible. And so even if we sprayed and we showed signs that we are trying to eradicate all of them, they'll just return. Especially if we're not there. And so the issue here isn't about are noxious weeds harmful? They are. Are they bad? Yes. Do people hate them? Yes. The issue here is does it make sense to require it for new subdivisions before the farmer or the rancher is able to move onto the property and do all he can while he lives there?
Right, right. And I know your wife is here, and do you want to speak to it as well? Okay, if it's all right, sir, I'll let her speak. And I do have one question for you, Robert. The request is to remove the requirement for planned subdivisions to provide a certification. Are you trying to eliminate the certification process, or would you be all right with finding a process that's a little bit more workable?
Well, if we were to reestablish our government and all move on onto new land, there's no way any of us would be able to establish such an ordinance. It's because weeds are everywhere, and they will always be everywhere.
Okay.
I don't think it's very workable. It's because right now, if the inspector is able to find one noxious weed, he can decline it. And that means he can get down on his hands and knees and find one star.
Right.
And
I think that goes to maybe a modification instead of an elimination.
I would agree.
But go ahead. Let's let your wife speak, and she can speak to it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Suzanne Stevens, and I'm not sure keeping the certification is even necessary at this point. We have a road there. We've leveled it out. We bought water. We covered the ditch. We've done all living requirements, but yet we can't live on it. We started this process. We have 7 kids. We started them when the oldest was 13, or maybe he was younger because it's been 15 years. I think, these kind of requirements are just stopping us from being able to live on our land. In 2011, we had borrowed money to do more work on the property to cover all the requirements to be able to live there. And then we lost our house because we overspent, like a lot of people did during that time. And we haven't been able to get a house since because we've had to get loans in order to continue to get all the requirements done to be able to live on the land. And so now we have, our youngest will be 22 next week, so she's done with really having a home to grow up in. And then we have a 13-year-old, he's right there, and then the other daughter's out. But too many of these type of regulations are preventing us from living on the land we'd hope to live on, to have our children have a little farm, raise our own animals and our own vegetables and fruits and bees and all that sort of thing. So I think it should be eliminated. Like Robert said, nobody likes weeds. And in doing our research over this, we actually found out that despite what we all have thought, weeds are actually not terrible. Weeds actually grow in property where the soil is deficient in nutrition. Because the weeds go 6 feet, 3 feet, 100 feet down, they draw up nutrients. So these noxious weeds are bad and nobody wants weeds, but then again, that land right now is not very nutritious. It's gonna take a lot of work to bring it up to where we can actually plant good things there. We had testing done and there's very little that can be done right there. And so you can see the weeds obviously show that. The inspector told Robert that the only way for us to pass after we cleared 95% of the 40 acres was to do pesticides or herbicides. And he didn't say we could do anything else in order for him to sign that paper for us to be able to go to the next step, which takes another 3 to 6 months. We hope in the next year and a half we can have a house for our children. And he's 13. He's going to be off to college in 6 years. But anyway, so he said the only way to do that, well, I decided about 6, 8 years ago that I needed to fix my health. I didn't have major problems. I had acid reflux, hiatal hernia, and esophagus spasms, which were caused by over 40 sensitivities to chemicals and foods. And so I spent my time learning, and I learned that if I eat the best I can, going to farmers markets, going to the grocery store, trying to buy the most organic that I can, grass-fed, that's what's gotten rid of my health issues. And the fact that they want me to put these dangerous things on the few little weeds or to spray everything is just horrifying, because all the work that I've done to get to the healthy stage I am now will just be ruined overnight. And it doesn't go away in a month or two, and maybe the worst effects go away in 2 months, but it can be long lasting. Our fruits and vegetables and our animals, what they eat is what we eat, and I don't want to eat that stuff anymore. I'm done eating that stuff, and I don't want my kids to eat that stuff anymore. And so it's a health issue for our family. And when we live there, we hope to be able to, we're planning to reinvigorate the soil, and then get rid of the weeds as we go. But as you invigorate the soil, the weeds, they don't have a place there anymore because they don't need to be there. Let's see. I think it's our rights, like people in the city, to be able to, take care of the weeds as they see fit. I can't. Once we get the certification, that's good for 2 years, which means the weeds can come back and grow and grow and grow, and then in 2 years I have to, do the certification again. So it's really not about the weeds. It's just about getting approval to be able to get subdivision. If it was about the weeds, then I think the government would have a law where requiring every single owner in the county and in the city and people hired to go out and, every week and make sure everybody is noxious weed free. And that's not going on right now. And if they're not going to do that, then I think this is just too much, I can't think of the word, just too much for somebody who's trying to get subdivision approval.
Thank you.
After all these years, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sir? Oh, I know who you are.
Thank you. I appreciate you calling me gentleman. That's the first time you ever referred to me that highly. My name is Dean Miner. I'm currently vice chair of the Utah County Weed Board. I have just completed 35 years of working with production agriculture in this county. And the time this ordinance was passed, I was on the county planning commission. So I'd like to just speak for a moment towards the need for the ordinance. Historically, when rural areas are subdivided, there is disturbance in the soil. They level, they put in roadways, they do things to get ready. Anytime the soil is disturbed, it offers an opportunity for weed seeds that have lying dormant, have not been in a situation where they could germinate, that they have been raised closer to the soil surface. They have access to the needed moisture, to the needed warmth, and you get a growth of whatever happens to be there. The intent of the ordinance was that some action would be taken to mitigate those noxious weeds. I can't speak to the timing on when this took place in this particular instance. I can speak a little bit towards the 100% expectation, and that would be on a very narrow group of weeds. I believe they're class 2 that were not previously known to exist in Utah. So if a new infestation shows up that has never been here before, it is expected that the landowner take care of that. It can be hand pulling, it can be whatever it takes to get rid of that seed source, because until that time it was not known to exist in Utah. There was conversation about this ground had been tilled and looked perfect. And I don't know why it wasn't inspected at that time, but it is not unusual practice for a farmer who leaves a field fallow to have to go back in and till it more than once during the summertime to stay ahead of the weeds that are in that disturbed soil. If you want to modify it, I couldn't really argue about that until you show us what the modifications would be. But the need for an action when soil is disturbed and may not be addressed for several years was certainly a need then, and I believe it continues to be a need now. Any questions I'd be happy to try and address?
I think we're good.
That's fair enough. Is Phragmites one of those weeds?
That is on the noxious weed list that would have to be...
One of those 3?
No, okay. It's established a presence. These weeds that they would expect 100% would be weeds that we've probably not heard of because they're not in Utah. I've seen the list, but I can't remember the names. If you have a neighbor
Right.
that has a
Native either.
noxious weed problem that is
what I thought.
impacting you, there is a provision where you can file a complaint, and the county weed supervisor will do his best to address that issue, ranging from typically just a visit with the neighboring landowner and explain what can be done, takes care of the issue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Come ahead, Bryce.
Bryson Armstrong, Community Development Staff. Can't really add much to it. Mr. Miner just added, I think he covered it well. I think what I can add, and Mr. Robinson kind of addressed this, what's before you today is just the simple requirement of this certification that is part of the subdivision process has been completed. The certification requires that they're either free, so they don't exist at all, so it's good, or there's a treatment plan based on what's there and what that plan is. The process of how to treat it, which weeds are on that list, isn't the purview of this ordinance. It's the purview of the Weed Control Board. And so I think all this is looking at is just this needs to happen at the time this property is transitioning from generally production agriculture into more of a residential use. And so number one, that it's being treated or a plan is in place, and then the education component has happened. Mr. Miner referred to ongoing maintenance. That's through the nuisance program. And so just kind of wanted to clarify that. I don't think we want to add a lot of weed-specific processes in our land use ordinance. I think that is the expertise and the purview of the Weed Control Board.
So the Weed Control Board, is that a special service district or how? I mean, I'm fairly new to the commission, so.
I don't know the answer to that. Dean, do you?
No, it looks like
I don't
Richard's
think
coming
it's
up.
necessarily part of the service area 8 for land use, but I'm not sure of that. And we can also continue and have more representation from the weed board here if we need to, or the process on the county end.
Richard Nelson, Public Works Director. The weed board itself is just a board that's appointed by the commission as an advisory board. The weed supervisor actually works in my department. It's a trained individual that goes out and has the training for what these noxious weeds are, mitigation items. He has a team that works under him. And then they take direction also from the weed board and work in conjunction with them. So does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I see here is kind of a combination between an ordinance and then enforcement of that ordinance. Having owned land in the county myself for several years, I had trouble getting a permit to build a barn. I had greenbelt land, I had a farm, I couldn't build a barn. I ended up buying 2 shipping containers and putting them on my property because I couldn't build a barn because of the regulations in the county. So I tend to lean on the side of, if we own land, we should be able to do, I owned a farm and I couldn't build a barn. What's wrong with this scenario? Right? So I look at this and I've got a lot of empathy for the folks in the county, and I frankly think that we at the county do a very poor job of respecting property rights. So I think moving forward, I am more than willing to press on that. And I look at this and say, is this a regulation issue? Is this an enforcement issue? Is this a combination of the two? The reason I asked the question about the weed board, if it was a special service district or whatever, is because if it's under the purview of the commission, then maybe we can say, well, then maybe we need to lean on the enforcement side of this. So I have more questions on this issue. I would like to continue the issue, I would say for probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was originally thinking, if we could continue this, because there's some holes in it I'd like to look at.
Right, and then I would love to discuss enforcement, the balance of enforcement versus the regulation and how we move forward on that.
So we'd have to go 3 weeks.
Oh, because of that.
Because we don't
Right.
have one.
So I'm going to make a motion that we continue item number 31 for 3 weeks so that we can look at possible options.
And that would be the 3 weeks would be the
First week of September.
The first
Yeah.
day of September, September 1. So I can second the motion that we continue item number 31 until September 1.
Okay, we get a motion and a second to continue item number 31 for 3 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, now number 33 is the county commission is to take action to refer the proposal and objection to add land to the existing Rowley number 1 2020 2002 Agricultural Protection Area. This one is, and Peggy, you can go ahead and speak to it. This one is basically a referral back, and then it will come back to the commission after it's gone through that process. That's all this is just referring it, in that direction.
That is correct. By state statute, the county commission is required to refer it to the Ag Board and the Planning Commission. They are recommending board. They'll review it. We write a staff report, and then that will come back before you to set a public hearing. And then after the public hearing, it'll be on regular agenda to take action.
So this is just a formal process. It always makes me laugh a little bit when we're required by law to do it, and yet we have to vote on it.
Right.
Seems weird, but anyway, it is what it is. So a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item 33 and refer the proposal.
I will second that motion.
I got a motion and a second to that the county commission is going to take action and refer this proposal as stated number 33. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. All right, I think that takes us to the end of our regular agenda. We do have some closed meeting agenda items that will follow later. Now we come to the public comment section. And the public comment section, if I could, this public comment section is open to any questions or any comments. And that means that there might be general public comments that are different than maybe what some of you have come here for. And so I'm assuming there's one big comment section with a lot of comments that are going to happen. Are there any general public comment sections that you came here specifically to comment on that might be different than what the mass group of people are here for? If there are, I would like to give you an opportunity to speak now. And we'll look, if you're online, if you'll push that button to raise your hand, or if you're over in the HJB at 1600 room, if you'd raise your hand or come to the podium, that way we know that you want to make a general comment.
So if somebody has any comments on like zoning issues or other issues, then the hot topic of the day, we want.
Yeah. Seeing none? Any online, Alice? Yep, okay. Okay, with that then, I'd like to ask, when we're talking about this issue, this is a topic that is not on our agenda it was not on our agenda today for any vote or any consideration. And I'm sure there's for and against whatever the comments are, to the issue that we're not naive to. We received lots of emails, and so we knew that this was going to happen. And we've also seen kind of a preview from last night at another county. And so I'd like to just ask how many individuals here are looking to make a comment, just by raise of hands. If I can just kind of count really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You two as well?
1, 2, 3, 4,
15, 16, 17. We got 17.
We've got 7 in the HJB that I can see.
And 7. And how many online? 15 on Zoom. Okay. 14. 19. Well, that makes it perfect because I have 39 total, so that'll make 40.
Sheriff, you might want to keep that door open so you can see that person with the wheelchair coming up.
I think I've got yours too. What I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to necessarily go in a direction of massive limitation, but I want to get an idea. So
Is it getting hot?
okay. So with that, oh wait, I timed that wrong. 40. So that's we we're going to allow 90 seconds or a minute and a half, to make the comments, and that's about an hour. That's an hour worth of comments, to this, and so we'd like to, hold to that. I realize that there may be some that think, oh darn, I made a comment, now I'd like to come up and make a follow-up comment. We're not going to allow that. We're just going to allow you to make a comment. So we're going to go for an hour on comment, an hour or so, because we're not going to count the hour if somebody's walking up or something. There's some flexibility there, but for the most part, we're going to be looking for an hour of comments. If some of the rules that I think the commissioners are agreeing with me on. One, this is not a public debate, and I know there was some clapping earlier, and if I could dissuade that, and I'll tell you the reason why, is because we want the forum to be open, and we want it to be non-threatening. And sometimes when we get a lot of clapping or booing or something like that, it actually suppresses individuals from maybe making a comment, and we don't want that to happen. So if you would refrain from that, that'd be helpful. It's an opportunity for you to share your thoughts with us. It is not a question and answer. So if you ask us a question, don't be surprised if we sit there and smile and not necessarily answer questions. If you'd like to come to any of our offices and make an appointment and come in and sit down with us, that's the time for more question and answers. We'd love to be able to do that. There won't be any donating of time. Like, I'm going to give my minute and a half to so-and-so. We're not going to do that. If you want to make a comment, we are looking for comments since we are Utah County and we represent Utah County. We would appreciate the Utah County residents, who want to make comments, and they will be first on our priorities. So we'd anticipate that you come up and give your first and last name, and we'd ask if you'd give where you're from so that we know you're here from Utah County. Now, if there's somebody outside of Utah County that wants to make a comment, we're not going to put that aside, but we will do that later. We'll give an opportunity a little later on that. And since we have 40 on here or so, we'll kind of see where that goes. So to kind of set the stage just a little bit, did I cover everything? Oh, wait. We talked about the HJHB. There is that overflow. If anybody's feeling uncomfortable,
building.
The Health and Justice Building just right across the street, room 1600, and you see them on there, so there's no surprise. And to facilitate the speaking of this, to try to be as fair as possible, we have the two microphones here that are set up front. Of course, in the HGHB or on Zoom, you'll have to just go up to the one or there at your home, and we'll bounce back and forth. So those who are here to speak on behalf of on a mandating basis, if we could have those who are for that to probably come to, I'll just say this microphone here, the freestanding one, and it's just a pick, and then the others, if you'd like to come up to the podium here and speak on this one. We will try to go back and forth just a little bit, and so if there's a line and a line, then we will offset, and we'll also, at times, you'll have to follow my lead, and we'll go over to the HJHB, let them speak. They could be for or against, I don't know. So, and Zoom, I just don't know, and so we'll just kind of bounce a little bit on that. So it's not going to be totally equal. Don't expect it to be. And we'll have civil dialogue, and I love the fact that we can come here and have a conversation and a civil, I'll call it, comment section. But to set the stage just a little bit, I want to make sure and read through a few things. All three of us, three commissioners, we've met with our health department director and all three superintendents from the school. And so we have had communication, and I want you to know that it was in this spirit and attitude of collaboration, trying to find an area that we can agree on. It's not like we agreed on everything. There was some disagreements, and we had to make some compromises and talk back and forth on what they looked like. But I have here letters that the health department put out, and if you don't have a copy, we can get you a copy. And I also have a draft letter that one of the school districts was putting out as a template for the other school districts also to look at and then send out to parents. So I don't know how many of you received letters from your school districts. Did you receive some? Emails? Okay. So maybe you've seen some of these, and I wanted to go down through them because this discussion didn't happen with just the commissioners. It was 7 individuals, the 3 commissioners, the 3 superintendents, and the health department director, in which we talked about this issue and decided, you know what, we're going to go in this direction together. And the direction that we are following, I'm going to read some of this one comes from the health department. The health department puts down through bullet points, and one of them is personal choice and responsibilities. Parents have the personal choice and responsibility of how they choose to protect their families. That's one of the bullet points they have on there. Second, the local decision making. And I think this one's critical because last year we saw some deficiencies of that. So the local decision-making comes down, and it may even restrict and go down even further to specific schools at times, or classrooms, and so there might be some times when we see that. The Utah County Health Department has a whole list of items on here talking about physical distancing, isolating at home, quarantining, recommending, I want to point out that, recommending wearing masks when indoors. It was a recommendation that came to us. It wasn't a mandate. And the last point they have is, if you're sick, stay home. And I think we can emphasize that over and over. If you're sick, stay home. We say it, it's probably more important than ever. And I hear from Eric all the time, and he says, we're going down a path of informing, educating, and advising. And that's the health department's, public statement they put out there. Again, this draft letter, they have out here kind of the summary. And again, the letters may be a little bit different on the school districts, but I think it encapsulates the most in this one here. It says COVID-19 vaccinations. Vaccination is not a requirement. Face masks are not mandatory. COVID-19 testing will not be required in most circumstances, including for extracurricular activities. Feel sick, stay home. We've heard that over and over, and we'll keep emphasizing. There's some quarantining things, and it goes down through, and we're trying to follow some guidelines that were given us from, we are a political subdivision of the state of Utah, so we have to follow the state of Utah's recommendation, not their recommendations in some cases, their ordinances or their laws that are passed. And so it talks a little bit about that and what happens if we start seeing more. And then they talk about remote learning, sanitation and hygiene, COVID-19 case counts. And then this last part, and I want to emphasize this because I really liked how they put it. They said, be smart. Stay home when sick. Masks are a personal choice, but may prevent sickness and quarantining. Advocate for distancing when possible. Remember good hygiene and sanitation. Talk to your healthcare provider about vaccinating or vaccine for eligible students. So I just wanted to point those out because us as a commission, along with the school board superintendents, the school superintendents, and also with the health department, we are, in my opinion, in lockstep in looking at this situation as the school comes about. And so with that, unless commissioners, you have anything else you'd like to add?
I think you made a great point that if you look at it, some other counties, there's friction amongst the leaders at different levels. Our county doesn't have that friction. The school superintendents, which specifically Alpine, Provo, and Nebo School District superintendents, the health department director, and the 3 commissioners, we're collaborative and we're all on the same page. So we don't have the same friction that some of the other counties have. And what that being on the same page is that the role of the health department is to educate, inform, and provide resources. And then the role of the legislative body is to pass laws. And so but we all agree that the government's job is to make recommendations, to provide information, and to educate, and to provide resources. We've worked above and beyond as a county to ensure that any person who wants a vaccine has access to that vaccine free of charge. And we're even bringing them to their own neighborhoods. Anyone who wants a mask, we will provide that mask free of charge. Regardless of your socioeconomic status, your income, your ethnicity, your neighborhood, if you need resources, we will bring you the education and we will give you the resources you need. And then it is up to you to implement that for your families. And I think all 7 of us agree with that.
Commissioner?
To echo what's been said, started when I first got elected in January, I started working with the health department director and even our sheriff and county attorney, and they were not going to impose any kind of mandate. We did work extremely difficult hours, 7 days a week at times, to make sure the vaccinations were available for those who wanted them. And those that we did not want them, there was no press to try to change their mind. So there's been a lot of exhaustive work on all parties for this effort. And again, what we want is the individual adult and parents' discretion on what they do with masks and vaccines. And so this is the culmination of all of that. So I've been glad to be part of it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. So if you would then, in an orderly way, line up on the different sides that you'd want for now. This is the side for less government mandates. This is the side if you'd like to see more mandates. And then what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and take we're going to go ahead and take 3 comments over here. Then we'll go 3 comments on this side. And then I'm going to bounce to the HJHB, and then we'll go to Zoom, and then we'll come back. Go ahead, sir. Please state your name and where you're from.
My name is Ren Farnsworth, and I am from Lehigh. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Commissioner Lee, for your response to us in a fast order. We have 6 children, three girls, 3 boys. 2 of our boys are active police officers here in this county, and a daughter who is a paramedic. We are a Blue Line family, and if anyone in this room knows anything about COVID and its effects, it would be our family. I have 14 grandchildren in this county, and for us personally, after raising our children for 37 years, we believe it is a God-given right and a responsibility for parents to raise their children in a way that they see fit. I beg and plead with you, do not strip or revoke my adult children from their obligatory duty of their children's health. It is God-given, and only God can give it to them as parents and no one else. I'm responsible for my health, no one else is. But they are responsible for my grandchildren's health, and only them, and they will make the decision to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to just jump right to code instead of emotions. The FDA, this is coming right from the FDA website on the personal protective equipment emergency use authorization. They state that PPE refers to protective clothing, helmets, gloves, face shields, goggles, respirators, or other equipment designed to protect the wearer from injury or spread the infection of illness. And they continue, all PPE that is intended for use in medical device, so they're defining face masks as a medical device, must follow the FDA regulations and should meet applicable voluntary consensus standards for protection. Some PPEs are reviewed by the FDA before they can be legally sold in the United States. I'm sorry, I didn't say my name. My name's Aaron Davidson from Linden. So FDA, before they can legally be sold in the United States, in this review known as the pre-market notification or 510K clearance, manufacturers must validate the methods used to test conformance to standards and support each product with appropriate performance test data. Now, in that regard, under Title 21, USC 360 BBB-3, the authorization for medical products for use in emergencies. So this is in regard to any mandate for the use of a medical device, which is either a face mask or the vaccines. It says under Section E, condition of authorization, unapproved products requiring conditions. So this is referring to, there are about 30 face masks, and in the code, it labels what face masks are approved. And so any of these cloth face masks have never been approved. And so this is relating to the unapproved products. It says with respect to emergency use of unapproved products, appropriate conditions designed to ensure that individuals to whom the product administered are informed that the Secretary has authorized the emergency use of the product and of the option to accept or refuse administration of the product or the consequences, if any, of refusing administration of the product.
Okay, thank
So
you.
if you mandate a mask, but you
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not that tall. Thank you. My name is Mark Nelson. I'm from Spanish Fork. Lived in Springville before that, so 12 years in Utah County. First, I want to thank the commissioners for responding to our emails. Appreciate it. And also for your stance on personal choice right now. And as stated earlier by the other two gentlemen, to advise you to continue that stance. Emergencies, they'll always come up. We'll always have emergencies. However, we have laws. We have a supreme law that tells us how to act when those emergencies come up, and that's called the Constitution of the United States. They don't suspend the Constitution emergencies. Citizens, we're able to assess our own risks, right? If 20% of people are dying, we're not sending our kids to school, okay? We can be informed and we can make our own choices. Also, just from the earlier comments about the property rights, there seems to be a spirit of collectivism that has crept into our country over the past 67 years, and incrementally, of course, so as to not see them as a problem or reasonable. However, we are a republic of individual liberty and not a democracy of collective slavery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Tricia Bunderson. I'm a resident of Lehigh. I have 4 children under the age of 12, and I also work as an ER nurse here in the Valley. I am here to advocate for a mask mandate in K-12 schools, and I'm representing many concerned parents as well as healthcare workers who could not be here today because they are either working or they have high-risk kids and family members. Some are joining via Zoom, and others have submitted written statements or videos for public comment as well. Commissioners, we are in a quickly evolving public health crisis. Case counts are more than 3 times what they were at the beginning of the summer. Positivity rate is increasing. Schools start in less than a week, and this Delta variant is changing the game. Our hospitals are full. We are low staffed. We are feeling the strain. We ask you to please act as with the changing nature of the virus. So by allowing each parent to decide whether or not their child wears a mask to school, you're discounting proven public health mitigation measures right when we need them the very most, and taking a grave risk that could have dire consequences for many children and the wider community without access to health care. A proactive mask mandate protects kids' health and education. It keeps them in school where they are more able to thrive emotionally and socially. A proactive mask mandate protects parents and teachers from breakthrough infections. They support burned out healthcare workers by slowing the spread in the community. The mask mandate prevents additional increases in health insurance premiums and our taxes. Disease is costly in so many ways to our community. Please respond to the changing nature of this virus and allow mask mandates and other appropriate mitigation measures in our schools that we know work for the time being until kids can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Stephen Call. I'm a resident of Mapleton. I'm a local physician, rheumatologist. 80% of my patients are immunosuppressed. I'm here on behalf of my parents who have young children who feel like they don't have a choice because risk to them, in their eyes, means making a choice between possible life and possible death. Now, the risk to children is absolutely low. The risk to the parents is markedly higher. These are parents who have done all they can to mitigate their risk. Vaccines, and they don't respond to the vaccines. We know this as much as other people do. Some of my patients have 0 antibodies after getting vaccination, so they're doing all they can to mitigate risk, and now they're faced with the decision, do I send my 6-year-old or my 7-year-old or my 10-year-old to school and allow them in unmitigated circumstances to potentially be exposed to risk that might risk their very lives? This is a very unique virus, right? We know that what we personally do makes a difference to our neighbor. I call it the uniquely Christian virus, right? Because community effort is what is required for optimal outcomes. Government, I think, needs to take responsibility when people don't have access to those 3 unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness equally. And that's where temporary, rational, and reasonable recommendations and even mandates should be instituted. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Croft, and I'm a resident of Provo, Utah. I would like to add my voice to the growing number of parents who are concerned about the inevitable consequences if we choose inaction. And those consequences are as follows: a dramatic uptick in COVID-19 cases among our children, a rise in hospital admissions that are already being filled again, a strain on our economic resources, another year where our students don't learn, thereby stunting their growth and development, a downturn on our community's wellness, and finally, devastation in families who will contract the disease through school. We cannot afford any of this. It grieves me to realize that if our numbers continue in the way they are headed, we are going to have another school year where students don't progress and have another interruption in their education, a precious right that we as parents are stewards of. This is unconscionable. It is time for us to be the adults in the room and listen to the ample evidence that has been handed to us to give our students a chance at school. Those parents who are opposed to wearing masks can still have the choice to keep their kids at home without masks. The onus of responsibility should no longer be placed on the families who teach their children to respect others by wearing masks. I kept my 10-year-old daughter home last year, and she's one of those kids who actually likes school. She deserves to go back full-time. She will not get that chance if we do not show up for her and many other amazing kids like her. Mass quarantines are in her future if we balk at the opportunity laying before us. A trajectory of steadily loosening precautionary measures does not make sense in response to a significant spike like we are seeing now. And I will remind the commissioners that requiring masks is not an extreme measure, but banning a mandate is. A mask requirement is simple, non-permanent, and effective. We have run out of excuses. Please take the advice of experts and enact a requirement to wear masks from K through 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to the HJB.
Health building.
If somebody's up there on there, okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm from Spanish Fork, and I'm here to request the defense of our freedoms. If we mandate that students wear masks to attend school, we are infringing on our citizens' rights to make their own decisions and their own life choices. I believe parents should be permitted to make their own informed decisions. I am open to recommendations from the health department and reliable health officials. There are many sides to the argument of whether masks are improving or harming our health, especially our kids' health. And I believe it is each individual's right to decide on matters of health. And I feel that it may come to the point, if this becomes a mandate, that I decide to pull my kids from school and homeschool them at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the
Can you control-
HJB.
I'm sorry, can you control that volume?
Hi, I'm Cindy Armstrong. I'm from Provo. I'm a school teacher. I teach students 7th through 8th, and I sit and watch the whole classroom full of students struggle, having trained staff and empathical breakouts on their faces. I watch every day as they play with them and hold them down. They're coughing in them, and then they're touching them, and they're touching the desk. We spent all year sterilizing the room when all they had to do was cough like this. No mask necessary. No sterilization of their hands every 24 seconds because they touch their nose again. We had students with extreme eczema breaking out and bleeding. They couldn't pick up a pencil. And they're sick, not because of COVID, but because they can't get any air. It's terrible. I watched all the grades drop. Masks did not help education at all. Collaboration is great. We have seen the CDC and the county health officials and the state all buy in to one theme and one tenet. Just because they're saying it doesn't mean it takes away my rights. You may have an inability to take a vaccine. I'm sorry. But you don't have the right to force me to take one or to put a mask on my face. Not wear masks. My blood levels go down to below 89 in less than 10 minutes. Yes, can you get a waiver? I did. I could wear a shield, but have you ever tried to teach a classroom with a shield on? It was ridiculous. Have students, all of them have speech pathology needs. I would always tell them, take that mask down. I cannot hear you or understand. And that is not education. That is torture.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one from the HJB. And if you could speak closer to that microphone, it's a little harder for us to hear you here.
Hi, my name is Cody LaPre, and I'm in Linden. I'm the son of Dan and Stephanie, and I am a high school student at Pleasant Grove High School. And over the past year with the mask mandate, it was a struggle to learn. And I just want to, in our Pledge of Allegiance, it says that we're one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you define liberty, the definition of liberty is freedom without oppression. And this mask mandate will be oppressing me, my siblings, my family, and other students my age that are against the mask mandate to wear a mask. They're oppressing me and my health rights because I want to be able to walk and see my friends' smiles. I want to be able to see my family smiles in the hallway. I shouldn't have to be oppressed by people who want a mask mandate. The death rates of COVID-19 are not even in the top 10 death causes in America. Heart disease is number one. And so if we need to talk about death, maybe we should talk about heart disease. And I just want to leave that I should not be oppressed. I have my liberty and my freedom. As a 17-year-old kid, my parents should be able to decide for me. I shouldn't have to obey the mask mandate. It should remain a recommendation for those who want one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to Zoom. So Alice.
Okay, we'll first hear from Brad Plothow. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and proceed.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time. My name is Brad Plotho. My family and I have lived in Lehigh for about 12 years. We're parents to 4 children, all in the Alpine School District, kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. We homeschooled our kids for the first time last year because we were afraid of the uncertainties of COVID, didn't want to expose them to what was at that time pretty scary. It's worse this year by all accounts. And so, but our kids are desperate to go back to school. And I just want to talk about who we should be listening to at this time as we come up with policies that help us to keep our public spaces safe. We all contribute to and benefit from our public spaces. We send our kids to public schools, and we have an expectation that those spaces are safe and that we take some basic common sense precautions to make sure that they're safe. None of us have lived through a global pandemic before. The last one was over a century ago. And so we're going through this for the first time. We're also dealing with the novel virus. It's never been seen before. And this year, compared to last year, we have a new version of it, new mutation that we've never seen before. And so we rely on those who have deep expertise and study these kinds of things and understand what's necessary to help us understand it, to give us the recommendations on how to limit risk, especially because the nature of this disease is that the decisions of one individual could affect 10 people. And that magnifies as we start to make collective decisions. So we have to think about this in a collective manner. And so when we consider this, I just want to invoke a quote from Winston Churchill. At one time, he said, "To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talent." None of us has the skill set and the unique talents to be able to recommend what's necessary at this time from a public health standpoint to make our schools safe, especially as our K through 6 students don't have the opportunity to be vaccinated yet. We need to rely on the inputs and give outsized weight to the recommendations from our public health experts at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Alice.
Okay, next we have Samantha Thane, if you'd like to unmute and proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm Samantha Thane of Saratoga Springs, and I'd like to say last year all three of my elementary age children had to
Samantha, you're a little bit low. If you want to maybe speak closer to your mic or maybe project a little louder, that would be better for us to hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, that's a little better.
So I'm Samantha of Saratoga Springs. Last year, all three of my elementary age children had to do remote schooling to protect me. I'm a type 1 diabetic with asthma and other medical conditions. Homeschooling was very difficult for us because of the extreme isolation that we faced. In the spring of last year, my children were starting to show signs of great anxiety and increasing depression because of missing out on socializing with other students that they get from public schooling. They need to go to school this year and are happy to distance and wear masks so that they can safely see other people, talk with them, and receive better education through people who are properly trained to give them that. They need protection from the negative impacts of COVID and the potential of it triggering autoimmune disorders in them. Being the only ones wearing a mask doesn't give them enough protection alone. We know that COVID mitigation efforts for all children in school decreases the amounts of absences that lead to disruptions in schooling and to help keep kids healthy. We know that because of Delta and dropping mitigation efforts in Utah, it has steadily led to increases in hospitalizations and an increase in case counts. Our kids being back in school unprotected will further these negative impacts and lead to countless other negative effects in our society. Please implement and uphold any public health measures that we can for our children until they can be fully vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more from Zoom.
Okay, we have Amber Guymon, if you would like to go ahead and unmute.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. My concern is we keep talking about personal choice, and my son's not vaccinated. We keep acting like, well, you had a chance to vaccinate. Up to you, personal choice. My issue, again, K through 6 schools, nobody's vaccinated among those students. So I could, understand where you're coming from. If that were the case, if my son had a chance and we chose not to because of personal choice, but that's not what's happening here. My proposal is, can we at least get through to where a vaccine's available and everybody's had a chance to fully vaccinate? If we could even do it that, I don't want to see my son in a mask. I kept him home last year. I kept my daughters home last year because we are immunocompromised and they are desperate to go back to school. They are desperate to be with other children, and they also love school. And they have begged me to not homeschool them this year because they want to be with their friends. Even though we went on field trips almost every week, we really went above and beyond to make it as fun and low-key as possible. I'm asking you, please make it safe for my children to attend school.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Amber.
We'll come back to here.
I'm guessing it's my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so I also homeschooled my kids last year.
Name?
Give us your name.
Oh, my name's Brittany Lindsay, and I'm running for Cedar Hill City Council, and if I lose, I'll run for the House of Representatives. I don't care what I need to run for. I will represent every single parent who sticks up for the Constitution of the United States of America. The 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution says that we are all privileged to life, liberty, and property here in the United States. Our forefathers died so that we could have those privileges. And to hear people say that we do not all get to enjoy those basic privileges is sickening to me. Absolutely sickening to me. When Tanner Ainge was up there before and he mocked the parents standing in the room who were standing up for their children, it was sickening to me. When I see Governor Herbert and Governor Cox throwing their parties with their billion-dollar checks, none of them unmasked, none of them none of them masked, none of them social distancing, having the time of their lives while the rest of the state is masked up, that tells me where their mindset is right then and there. It is all about control. It is all about control. And it is really hard for me to clap for the health department when I hear that they have wonderful things happening, because all last year they smacked parents in the face. They didn't care about what was happening to our kids. They didn't care about the parents that actually came and sat in their meetings. They did not care. And it's hard for me to hear about the superintendents too, because they're not voted in and they haven't done much good either. But I am so happy to hear that they are on the same page now. And I think we need to look at that going forward, staying on the same page. Thank you guys so much for emailing everyone back and for representing the people that have voted you in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Marianne Nilsson, and I live in Provo. I just wanted to start by mentioning that the Utah Code of the Utah State Legislature, on the Utah Health Code, it says in section 26-1-33, it's a section called Individual Rights Protected. It says, nothing in this title shall prohibit an individual from choosing the diet, therapy, or mode of treatment to be administered to an individual or an individual's family. And I also just wanted to mention, as you can see on my little quote here, from the lab reports from the University of Florida mask tests from several children's masks revealed multiple quite dangerous pathogenic bacteria, including Streptococcus pneumoniae, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Staphylococcus aureus, Neisseria meningitis, and numerous others which can cause meningitis and life-threatening sepsis and other severe infections. And you can look up that news article from Just the News website. And also, I wanted to quote Dr. Judy Mikovich. She says that wearing the mask literally activates your own virus. You're getting sick from your own reactivated coronavirus expressions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Moore, and I'm from Orem. I just want to start off saying I'm a single mom, and I've actually been homeschooling my kids the last year as well because of the masks, because they actually have PTSD and can't wear them because of how hard it is for them. And so we've been having to keep them home, which has been really hard on them. But I do want to say thank you so much for your willingness to serve. I know it's not an easy job for you guys to do this, and I'm especially grateful that you guys aren't pushing the mandates and you're giving us our rights. I could sit here listing off studies and facts about masks and vaccines and the data showing how COVID isn't a real threat to our children, but obviously I don't think you guys need to hear that. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. At the end of the day, the most thing that's important is a mandate constitutional or not. Our founding fathers risked their lives so that we could have these rights because they knew how horrible it was to live under a tyrannical leadership. Many of them and their families even died to give up, to be able to give us these rights. And I'm confident that you guys are smart enough and know what's constitutional and what isn't. And I have faith in you that you will make the right choices for our children. I know you guys have already talked about that. I just hope that you guys continue to and not change your mind on those things. I love that you guys mentioned that it's the role of the health department and government to inform and to recommend, and it's our role and responsibility to make these decisions for our own family. I just want to say, I'm telling you as your constituent that no mandate is constitutional, as I'm sure you guys have already figured that out. We do not support a mandate, and I support you guys in upholding the Constitution, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll come back over here.
So you guys can see me. Hi, my name is Alyssa May, and I live in Orem. I've lived there for about 15 years, and I love it here. Thanks for listening to us today. I'll be brief. I am proud of the Utah way. Last year, we managed to have economic growth in our state when so many states saw sharp declines. We had kids in school in person. And a lot of people were jealous of that in other states. The students in our state excelled despite all the challenges. In spring, our numbers decreased thanks to widespread masking and vaccines. We were preparing for the end game. Well, things have changed. The Delta variant is far more contagious, spreading to 7 or 8 individuals compared to the 2 or 3 that the Alpha strain infected, as I'm sure you know. Because the landscape has changed, our actions need to change. Last week, I was going to go take my kids to Splash Summit, and it was Friday, and it was the day that all the smoke rolled in. And so, because the situation changed, I needed to change my plans, and I think that's what we need to do now. With our current plans, COVID will spread very rapidly, far more rapidly than last year. With that spread will come exposures and quarantines. Kids will miss school days. They will miss time at school. Even if they're not sick, they're going to have to stay home for a couple of days and wait for a negative test, or wear a mask if they have been exposed, right? They're going to be at home, and there aren't online options this year. That was a lot for teachers last year. I was in a school, and I know it'll be really hard for kids to keep up. I saw it happen. I saw them fall behind last year, and I especially saw it in students of color. And I only mention that because I know you have a project to look at the disparities in health. When kids stay home from school, a parent has to stay home with them, right? And it's usually a mom, but whoever that parent is, unless they get to stay home, they're going to have to miss work. And then employers will not have their employees, and they're already short-staffed.
Okay,
We need to move to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky Buck, and I'm from Springville, and I'm here with a few of us that are here today in person, and then some people on Zoom that are commenting as well. Probably all the Zoom people are from our group. We sent out a letter a couple days ago just into Utah County. All these signatures on this letter are just from Utah County. Salt Lake County has also done a letter that has like over 2,000 signatures at this point. But anyway, so we're all here kind of representing these people, but I want to make sure that people know that these next comments are just my personal views. I'm a registered Republican. I have, ever since I was 18, voted pretty much straight ticket Republican with just a couple of exceptions. And I'm baffled by my party's anti-mask stance. Republicans have never been anti-government, but many now sound like anarchists when they talk about mask mandates. We also often point out that the U.S. is not a true democracy, as many influential Republicans have explained. In a true democracy, majority rules no matter what. In the U.S., government is there to protect the unalienable rights of all, especially from a mob that would trample them. There is nothing unconstitutional about mask mandates. Justin Collings, a professor of constitutional law at BYU's law school, wrote in the Deseret News a year ago, he said, "The states retain what constitutional lawyers call the police power, the power to regulate activities that affect public health, safety, and morals." And he talks about constitutional law as well at the federal level. I'm going to email you that article because obviously I don't have time to explain it. But I just wanted to say that we all need to be united right now against COVID-19 and put aside this party politics that is making this so much harder. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Emily Johnson. I am a parent in Provo. I also work at my kids' elementary school. I teach kindergartners the letters of the alphabet, and I hate masks. I hate them. I cannot teach kids how to pronounce a B with a mask on. I have to use a face shield. The last thing I wanted this year was to teach again with a mask. But things are changing, and we need to change with it. If you guys really value local control, then let the school districts make the choice. Public school is something you choose to put your kids into. If you don't want to abide by the public school rules, you have other options, lots of other options. I'm just so worried that we're going to go to school, the virus is going to spread like crazy because people aren't wearing, the kids that can't be vaccinated aren't wearing masks, and then we're going to have to shut down again. And that is going to be so much worse for our children's health and mental health than wearing a mask. And if you go to schools, if you go to elementary schools, the kids are fine. They don't complain. If it slips down, we just say, okay, put it back up. They don't make a big deal of it. They're not babies. They're fine wearing masks. And if this was like an individual protection thing, like I have to make my kids wear helmets, that's my choice. But this is more like a drunk driver thing. If other people's kids bring COVID to the school, and my kid, because they're not wearing an N95 mask, gets it, that's out of my control. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go over to the HJB. Don't see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't see them on. Oh, there they are, up there in the top left. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Natalie Sellers, and I'm from Eagle Mountain, Utah. And I also want to thank the commission for listening to parents and answering our emails. I first want to say that local control starts with the family. It doesn't start with any government. It starts with family. And we're the ones that decide what goes on in our families. And then that's why we vote for people to represent us. It's always local control is with the family. My concern today is there is, I don't know if it's rumor or what it is, but there's it's called a quarantine protocol that I'm worried about, because I am happy with your stance on parents' choice with masks. But I'm seeing this, that the Utah State Health Department said that if you are in a room with someone who tests positive for COVID, here are your options. 1, 7-day quarantine with a negative test. 2, 10-day quarantine without a test. Or 7-day in school with mask if negative test, or number 2, 10 days in school with mask with no test. To me, that is another mask mandate, and I don't think, well, I know a lot of parents won't stand for that at all, and I don't think that testing needs to be required, and again, it should be our choice as parents if we want to send our kids to school. I mean, I understand a quarantine. I understand that if our kids are sick, we should keep them home, but no testing should be required. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From the HJB.
Super prepared for this, but hi, my name's Andrea Lawson. I'm from Lehigh. I've lived there for 11 years now. I am so grateful for the commissioners for emailing back when I emailed them with questions. I have something kind of written out. We've been dealing with this for 18 months now with COVID and masks. I have 4 daughters at 3 different schools. Last year, my girls were super grateful to be back in school, but they dealt with the mask the best they could. My middle schooler passed out at school after she was forced in her ballroom class to perform a very fast dance, which, of course, as a mom, really worried me. All my girls were threatened and berated by all their teachers. I don't want to hear people saying that these teachers just simply say, "Oh, put your mask back on." That's not how it works. All my girls have told me numerous stories of how that's very different than what the lady just said earlier. My 10-year-old also had a girl pin her down on the ground and try and force a mask back on her. There is no way to contain or stop this virus. That is my 100% belief. I think that we can continue to do this forever, possibly. There's going to be new variants, and we need to return to normalcy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more from the HJB.
Well, Kelly, just want to let the commission know that I support their stance on this. I am an educator, work at a high school in Utah County, and I've watched over the last year how kids have struggled with this. The class of 2020, I feel like the senior class of 2020 had a lot that was robbed of their educational opportunity. I don't think we should be doing that with future classes of students. And so I support your stance. I just wanted to vocalize my support for the commission and their stance on no mandates, and allow people to make their personal choice, allow them to make their decisions for themselves. And I appreciate your communication and your stance on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to Zoom now. Alice?
Okay, Steph Yates, if you'd like to unmute and go ahead and proceed.
Okay, yeah. I am grateful to be given the time to express my concerns regarding COVID-19. I have a 7-year-old who is high risk because she had a solid organ transplant. When you have a child who is medically fragile, you'll do everything you can as a parent and a family to protect them. Last year, with all the uncertainties of COVID-19, we ended up homeschooling our 5 children. Our plan has been to send our kids to in-person learning this year so they can be in a better learning environment and be able to have the social interactions they desire. With the uptick of cases and how viral the Delta variant is, we do not feel safe sending our kids, especially our 3 youngest who are unvaccinated, to school with no mask mandate in place. It has been shown that when you wear a mask, it protects others around you more than it protects the mask wearer themselves. So when people make the personal choice to not mask, it doesn't only affect them, it makes it so others lose their choice of participating in school also. It is your job to make choices that will protect our children. Albert Einstein stated, "What is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right." We need to listen to the professionals on this matter. And from what I have gathered, they are highly recommending masks when indoors. Without a mandate in place, we are putting our children in harm's way. Many children overall handle this virus okay, but when they don't, it's heartbreaking. As a parent and a registered nurse, I know how helpless you feel to have to watch your son suffer and not be able to do anything to help them. Please do what is right to protect all children this school year. Please make school a safe environment for all kids, high risk or not, by putting a mask mandate in place until they are able to receive the vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, super. We will now go to Emily Williams.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Emily Williams. I'm located in Eagle Mountain. I have 2 kids in elementary school. We did remote last year, and let me just say it was not good. We sacrificed a whole year of school in hopes that this year would be better. Well, it's not better. And unfortunately, with that whole year away came mental health problems. My children deserve to be with their classmates in a safe environment. It is schools that need to be enforcing that all kids are safe. So I am for a mask mandate, and that's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. One more from Zoom.
Okay, and then Samantha Rizzo, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I'm Samantha Rizzo from Provo. I emailed all 3 of you commissioners last week. My daughter is compromised with autoimmune encephalitis, and we are literally depending on everyone else to wear a mask around her to keep her safe. We sacrificed, we kept them out of school, also my kindergartner, for the majority of the year, but it affected their mental and emotional health, especially my daughter because she has brain damage from her prior inflammation. There is a lot of false claims being spewed today about masks. Personal choice only goes so far when you can't pass the disease to someone else. Saying that your decision to not wear a mask doesn't impact anyone else around you is like saying that your choice to text and drive isn't dangerous to anyone else on the roads. Wearing a mask is not infringing on your rights. In fact, schools get to tell students how they should dress every single day with dress codes, and usually for misogynistic reasons too, like protecting boys' minds and virtue. But when it comes to telling someone what to wear, a mask, for the literal safety of others, you act as if it's all-out war on your rights and freedoms. This is a fallacy. And yet you as a commission take this a step further by telling schools that they cannot tell anyone to wear a mask. Just this weekend, a lot of reports have been coming out about Texas. It's a red state with similar vaccination rates to us, 45%. And yet Houston is erecting pop-up tents for COVID hospitalization overflow. Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio school districts have imposed their own mask mandates in spite of the governor's mask ban. We are following in their steps. That is what will happen to us. The mask ban was enacted before Delta, and when cases and transmission were much lower, it'd be reckless to not adjust your stance and position as the situation around us changes, just as drivers need to adjust their driving for the safety of themselves and others on the road when a blizzard suddenly happens. It doesn't take a degree to have an opinion, but it does take a degree to be a doctor and expert in public health, infectious diseases, and epidemiology. Why?
Thank you, Samantha. We need to go to the next comment.
Thank you. Okay, we're back over here.
Okay, I had other comments, but thinking about what everyone is saying, I kind of want to address that. So, Stephanie Grant from Lehigh. So the parents that you kept your kids home from school last year with the mask mandate in place, what makes you think it's going to be any better? Like, why did you keep your children home? They had a mask mandate there. It's not going to change anything. That doesn't make any sense. And why are we asking our kids to protect us? Let's protect our kids. Let's quit putting that on our children, that it's their responsibility to protect us. And, okay, who are we listening to? Angela Dunn, an unelected official we're listening to. I don't have to say doctor, I can say Angela Dunn. So I went to the meeting a couple days ago. Where's my paper? Oh, it's right here, sorry. I'll just say it fast. So Angela was asked at the meeting. Well, first of all, she didn't come and actually listen to parents speak. She only came to the very end. She was asked by one of the Salt Lake Council members, "Have you seen an uptick in suicides or suicide attempts during COVID?" She replied, "I don't know the exact data in terms of suicide attempts or completions." Okay, then he asked her, what is the position of clinical and adolescence psychologists? Like, what is their position? She says, I don't know their position specifically, and we're supposed to listen to her, and she doesn't know their positions. Mandated masks lead to mandated vaccines. And Angela Dunn asked us to please normalize masks. I will not normalize masks for my children. My children will be people who love each other, see faces, care about each other, help each other when they're sick. They will not be taught to be afraid of people that are sick.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank
we
you,
got to
Stephanie.
continue.
Thanks. What she said about what she said, like, our children are fine when they're wearing masks, they're not babies. That's not true. They're not talking because you're making them wear a mask. And also, when I was starting second grade, I ride the bus, so I thought I had a new bus driver because she was wearing a mask. And after a while, I figured it out why I thought I had a new bus driver because she was wearing a mask. And
Thank you for supporting us.
Thanks for supporting Smiles. That's all.
Say your name.
My name's Mia and I live in Lehigh, Utah.
Okay, one more from this side.
When my friend came over to play, we played. Then the next day, when we went to school, I didn't recognize her because she was wearing a mask. It made me sad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Go finish yours up.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Bella Barker, and I'm in French immersion. And in second grade, I couldn't sit by anyone at all because I couldn't wear a mask. And when I had to sit 3 feet away from my friends that were by me, and I couldn't do group work with them, and it was hard seeing my friends in masks. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am, you're up.
My name is Susan Chapman. I'm from Spanish Fork City. My background is I have a master's in public health, and I have been studying over the last 5 years about how mental health is a public health crisis. So why would I be a mask advocate in a balanced perspective as a mental health advocate? And what I have seen, and I was here last year during that meeting, I got booed and I got recorded and trolled for months after, by the way, which I did not appreciate. So I ask that you do not do that to people. But why, as a mask advocate, would I do this as a mental health advocate? What we're seeing is children being isolated, and that is not good. At that meeting, I said, please, please keep school in session, because it is very bad for children to not be in school. And it's wonderful to see these little children. Notice the absence of other children that are not here, that don't have a voice, because they don't have a safe place to be. Please make school safe for children. When my son got COVID, he got very sick. I told him, you will not get very sick, because kids don't get sick. He got very, very sick, and he had long-term impact from it. It impacted his sports for a long time. What we're seeing with kids is they're being impacted neurologically, leading to depression and anxiety that is directly impacted by the neurological effects of COVID. Please be mindful of this. We're seeing it in 1 in 5 adults, and we're still understanding the impact of children. This is not a disease that we know much about at this time. So just be mindful of that. It is not just a personal choice. We influence the others around us. We make choices for others. We do not have the choice to vaccinate our children under 12 at this time. So when we do not mandate masks, we mandate infection. This is what is happening. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your service and listening. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Adam Johnson. I'm a resident of Provo. I'm a parent as well, and have our kids obviously go to school. And I'm mostly concerned, obviously, for the most young, of the elementary school kids who can't receive the vaccine at this point. And so I just think, if we can save one life by doing this mask mandate, wouldn't it be worth it? So I think maybe we go forward to school as normal, but if there's a spike, I think the school district should have the opportunity, they should be able to react, and as it happens, and they should have the control back, and so they can determine what's best for their school, if there's cases spiking in their schools. And I just want to say too that if the worst happened, and we went and there were spikes and we didn't mask, and hospitals filled up and kids died, I want you to know that we'll remember when it comes time to vote, and we really just want to take care of those people who are most vulnerable. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Charlie Parkinson. I'm from Provo, born here, raised here, left the country for 12 years and came back. I was in Africa for the Ebola breakout. It took about 3 months to resolve itself because the community worked together. And I was in India for the SARS breakout. And again, the community worked together and it was resolved and the travel ban was lifted. Coming back and seeing how this is working here in this country is it's appalling to me that we're not looking at this with reality. We're looking at it, hearing people saying that they want their kids to be able to smile. That's what you're hearing, is that they want their kids to be able to smile. My son has viral induced asthma. He missed half of kindergarten, all of first grade, and he wants to go to school. But we walked into this room and immediately some parents said, "Oh, look, he's double masked. He got bullied last year because he wore a mask." These kids are bullying him right now.
You're not bullying him. You don't get to say that.
They're telling him to take off his mask.
That's not bullying. Another kid wanting another kid to breathe. That is bullying. You don't get to
Okay,
It's
okay,
bullying.
hold on. Go ahead.
This is what I'm saying. My son was bullied as soon as he got into class. He went to the last 2 weeks of school, and they made fun of him. So he has viral-induced asthma. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to keep him home again for another year because these people are able to have dominion in the schools? There's no reason, because you can't see somebody smile? What about people's life? Indonesia, for the month of July, had 100 deaths per week of children. Per week. That's coming here. It's coming. And you guys are responsible for making that decision to keep us all safe. Public schools should be safe. So please take into consideration kids like mine. Remember his face, because if he gets it, I want you to remember him. He's a good kid. He has good morals and good principles, and he doesn't bully other kids. So remember us, please. Do something to protect our kids. Do something to protect these families. 100 kids per week in Indonesia.
Thank you.
Take that into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to the HJB.
HJB does not have any.
HJB doesn't have any. Okay, we're done there. We'll go to the Zoom then.
Okay, Michael Buck, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute and proceed.
Okay, so last week there were about 72,000 cases of COVID in children across the nation. This week, the week before that, there were only 39,000, which is an 84% increase in cases in just the last week alone. And the only thing that's changed around the country is that schools have started to open up. Kids have started going back to school, and many of those are in states that have similar bans on mask mandates. The evidence is clear that masks significantly reduce transmission rates when the majority of the population is compliant. We won't be able to police what people choose to do in their personal lives, but we can decrease the spread in Utah by requiring masks in public places, especially elementary schools where large numbers of kids gather for many hours every day. The government has a duty to protect the health and general welfare of all the people. Refusing to take action that is known to help prevent life-altering outcomes goes against everything the country stands for. I think all our local medical institutions and epidemiologists agree that masks help reduce transmission. These are not co-conspirators trying to strip away our freedom. They are our neighbors of every political and religious ideology. They've spent years and thousands of dollars to study viruses, diseases, and public health. Please listen to them and heed their counsel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, super. Next, we have Carolyn Lambert. If you'd like to go ahead and unmute.
Yes, my name is Carolyn Lambert. I'm a resident of Highland. I echo the wise words of many and the more silent sentiments of many, many more, urging prudent protections for all students and staff, and particular concern for the vulnerable and those who have not been afforded the opportunity to receive Provident vaccine. This is a public health and safety issue. A layered and a larger effort is critical. Freedoms for all to be afforded a safe and equitable education, to be somewhat protected, to even have a choice to attend school, certainly ought to be considered, including my son and others like him, many who have chronic health problems, are immunocompromised, or have family members at greater risk, as well as all who are at the mercy of a virulent virus, the impact of which has yet to be well understood. Though many dangers well known and well documented, many unknowns as yet as well. My 11-year-old, a cancer survivor who has been willingly and prudently wearing masks from the age of 2, and who has also suffered unimaginable challenges in a many years-long fight for his very life. However, the struggles of this year and prospects looming much more difficult and painful. The likelihood of extended isolation because of a somewhat skewed idea of suffering and of science and statistics, both crippling and concerning. Health and safety for everyone ought to be of prime importance. Risks are many and not limited to certain subsets, not just hospitalization or death, but long-term symptoms which have the documented potential to affect a significant percentage of the population, including children. As one who has suffered many years from difficult chronic health issues, along with many in my family, and the mother of a child who has bravely battled cancer, acquainted with sufferings, my concerns are grave. I also have 2 daughters who are elementary teachers in Utah County, one with chronic health conditions that also put her at greater risk, and she's in close contact with many needy and deserving students as a special education teacher. They have lovingly given to students in our midst. They'd like to continue to do so without being worried about impending ominous impact. All are deserving of equal opportunities and care and consideration, security and safety. Please heed wisdom, the urging of health officials and well-studied leaders in American medicine. Do what's right.
Thank you, Carolyn. And then Liz Busby, if you would like to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, my name is Liz Busby. I live in Highland. I have 4 kids, ages 12 to 5. I love having choices, but we all know there are some things we don't get a choice about. Think about traffic laws. We don't get a choice whether we stop at a red light. Why? Wouldn't I be more free if I could drive however I want, whenever I want? I hate it when I hit a red light on the Temp Highway and have to wait for the traffic there. But my choices while driving affect others. Running a red light might make my life better, but it could end your life. So as a society, we decided that public safety in driving laws trumps individual choice. And we don't consider traffic laws an infringement on our freedom or oppressive. I think mask mandates are in the same category as traffic laws. No one likes them. No one likes to stop at a red light, but sometimes they are necessary. Not even considering illness, permanent injury, and possible death, there are 2 main concerns that I have about going back to school without a mask mandate. One is that kids will have to miss school to quarantine if one of their classmates is diagnosed with COVID. So your choice to wear a mask, not wear a mask, affects whether my kids can go to school. I don't have a choice about that. The other is preserving hospital resources. Our hospitals are already at the breaking point, and schools could make it worse. Your choice not to wear a mask could prevent me from getting a life-saving treatment if I were in a car accident or had a heart attack. This is why masks should be treated like traffic lights and not a matter of personal choice. Saying you can wear a mask if you want is like saying you can obey traffic lights if you want to, but others can choose not to. That's nonsense. It would not work for traffic, and it does not work for COVID-19. If there must be a choice, let parents choose to vaccinate or wear a mask. That is a fair choice that protects public safety.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back up here.
Hi, Terry Bishop from Provo. First of all, I just want to talk about common sense. My daughter-in-law and my son are nurses, and they work in the hospital. And to be honest, COVID is not as scary as some people really believe it is. I want to talk about common sense. I was at Discovery Museum with my grandsons just last week. They're 4 and 2, and there were some people masked and some people not, but yet these kids are running around touching every item in the museum, playing with it, touching it, putting it in their mouths, having a good time, and no one was living in fear. And my daughter-in-law is a nurse. She wasn't running around panicking and touching and worrying about her children. We can make personal choices. My mother had leukemia for 25 years. At flu season, she stayed home. I have an autoimmune disease as well. I have scleroderma. It means I'm turning to stone. I have not worn a mask the past year and a half. This has been going on a year and a half, not 3 months, a year and a half. The last thing I want to say is my son committed suicide 10 months ago. 10 months ago, I lost my son, who was a nurse, to suicide. So I understand public health. I understand it. Suicide has gone up 119% in the past year and a half. What are we doing? What are we doing to these kids? Let parents have personal choice. And if you're so afraid, homeschool, keep your kids home. But you can send your kid to school with a mask. You have that right. But these people have a right to send their kids without one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Terry.
Hi, my name is Hawk Vu. I'm a candidate for Provo City Council. I'm running along with Catrice McKay. The mandates is a reason why it spurred us both to run. I just want to say thank you for your service and for obeying the Constitution. When I got my commission as a military officer, I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Laws, whatever made, have to be constitutional. No one has the right no, whether you're president or whoever you are, you do not have the right to make a law that's not constitutional. It's not within your power. Doesn't matter what position you hold. Otherwise, there's a risk of civil disobedience, right? And in worst case, you have people and veterans maybe willing have to defend themselves, especially in worst case scenario like a vaccine mandate. I'm not going to have a vaccine shot in my body against my will. The government's responsibility is to protect our freedoms, the citizens' freedoms, not their health. We're not babies. And also, the mask is not effective. Fauci admitted himself in written communications in an email that because the size of the virus is about that big and the pores in the mask are about that big, in practical terms, it's impossible for it to prevent the transmission of the virus. Am I out of time?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One more on this side.
My name is Heather Ryan. I'm from Lehigh, Utah. I want to thank you all for your emails back, your statements on this subject. Our family, I'm a mother of 5. Our family had COVID in 2020. My son that I'm going to discuss, he is my youngest. He is disabled. He has autism and apraxia of speech, meaning his brain doesn't tell his mouth what to do to talk. So he is nonverbal. He was very ill in December 2019. He stayed home for a few days, and then we sent him back to school, the same as his other classmates had done, the basic tradition, common sense that we've done for years and years. I kept him home last year because thinking about putting him on a bus with a masked bus driver and masked aides that would strap him down to his seat. He has a mentality of maybe a 2-year-old. I couldn't do it. At school, he can receive occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, behavioral therapy, and be around other children. It's very difficult for a parent to mimic what the services that they would have in school. And there's an Americans with Disabilities Act that needs to be taken into account in these situations also. We spent $1,200 a month of our own money to try to mimic the services. We could get him speech and behavioral therapy 2 hours a day. And that was the extent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to come back over here and we're going to let you speak. And then, ma'am, you have a written statement, I believe, and we'll bring that microphone over to you. You probably have to come over here for the camera side of it if you want the camera side. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Luke Hutchison. I reside in Vineyard, Utah County. I completed a PhD in computational biology at MIT and a postdoc at Harvard Medical School. I want to address the science and the ethics of masking. The Delta variant is dramatically more contagious than older variants, produces 1,000 times higher viral load, and makes people significantly sicker. Security cameras in Australia caught the exact moment of transmission between 2 individuals in the mall who simply walked past each other. The Delta variant is so contagious that our old mitigation strategies just don't work anymore. The Delta variant is making more kids sick, and they're getting much sicker, comprising up to 3.5% of total hospitalizations today. Vaccines still work, but they are less effective against this variant. Masks do prevent transmission, particularly N95s, which can capture particles much smaller than the pore size that was just mentioned through electrostatic attraction. We must protect the most vulnerable members of society, including kids too young to get vaccinated, by masking up. Why would anyone not willingly wear a mask to prevent the suffering of others, especially children? So-called freedom to not wear a mask is a dangerous oxymoron. In New Zealand, strict nationwide compliance with public health mandates eliminated COVID, giving every New Zealander their life back, including my own family. Long-term freedom requires short-term sacrifices, and freedom cannot be separated from the responsibility to not harm others. People should be just as free to not wear a mask indoors in public during this pandemic as they are free to run a red light, potentially harming others. Please reinstate a mask mandate for all schools in Utah County to protect children, their families, and their teachers, and to prevent school closures caused by outbreaks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am? we want to get this, Brian, can you assist with that microphone?
Can you just move it down? Is that possible? Yeah, thanks. I wanted to, can you guys hear me? Or?
Might be.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Sorta.
Sorry, my voice.
Yep,
is
there we
There we go.
me.
That's better.
Firstly, I wanted to thank you all for helping to accommodate me to come speak today. I really appreciate that.
Here we go. Yeah.
Sorry. So there was a rheumatologist who spoke at the beginning. He was, I think, the second one who spoke, and he mentioned that 80% of his patients are immunosuppressed and high risk. I'm one of them. Not his patients, but one in that category. I have an autoimmune disease that's very debilitating. Sometimes I'm able to walk short distances. Others, like now, when I've had a lot of stress, I haven't been able to as well. That's why the wheelchair today. And I have a broken toe in my foot. It's not known how well the vaccine has worked for me. I did get the vaccine, obviously, but because of my immune system, they haven't done much research on it. There's no test to know if it even worked or how well it worked. So I come today double masked at high risk to myself because and I'm going to try not to get emotional, but a child earlier held up a sign saying, "Let me have a regular childhood." It made me start getting emotional because I have to choose basically between letting my children have a regular childhood or possibly my life. If I were to get this, the timer's not running.
No, you're good.
Thank you so much. Because I tend to ramble a little. So 40% of breakthrough deaths, that's deaths of people who have been vaccinated, 40% of them are immunosuppressed. That's not a good statistic for me. I also worry about my kids themselves. But they could bring COVID home to me and I could die from it, or I could survive and end up with long COVID. I assume everybody knows what long COVID is. With me already having such a debilitating situation, I feel that adding long COVID to it would probably be the last straw. And, could end up orphaning my children or making it so that I am not able to even have them live with me because I wouldn't be able to do enough to take care of them. As far as a regular childhood, my son missed the end of 6th grade and all of 7th grade. In order to protect me, they stayed home last year. Luckily, our school district was kind enough to offer what they call the home study option, where they got to be in their regular classes, but all the material was posted online. It was really great. We don't have that option this year. My oldest son is an 11th grader, and he did not do well with online last year. He fell behind and had to drop a couple classes so that he'd be able to catch up in the others. And this year, he has classes that will get him college credit and electives and an internship type program, all to help him with his goal of becoming an engineer. And I don't know what to do. I've even contemplated having my children go live with someone else so they can go to school and not have to worry about making music. But because it's increasing children so much, I don't want them to get sick either. Universal masks would protect my choice to be able to let my children have a normal childhood. Without them, a few people, and yes, granted in Utah County, many people, I suppose, will be inconvenienced and not like the fact that they can't see others' smiles. And I do agree. I so look forward to the day when everyone can be back in school and everywhere else and not have to wear masks. I would love to not be wearing this thing. I have dry mouth and I am dying for water right now. But too many of us have been forced to stay home or keep our kids home. I hardly leave the house. I'm basically homebound anyway. I leave once a week to pick up the curbside groceries. There are many more of us, I believe, who are in danger and feel that we have to pull our kids from school. Earlier, you were handed a letter that we started circulating only a couple days ago. This was organized by me and a few other people, just parents who kind of organically came together. That letter has 24 pages of signatures from people, and they are all in Utah County, all of them. It's not a statewide thing. These are Utah County parents who are worried for their children. So do not be misled by the fact that there are more people here in this room against masks than for them. The letter had over 700 signatures. Thank you so much for giving me the extra time and the accommodations, and I really appreciate it and hope that you will consider.
It worked out great. It worked out great because there was 3 slots over here and there was only 1, and you got 2 and 3. How's that? Okay.
And
all right.
Probably 4 and 5 and 6, right?
Yeah, well, we won't go that far.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Zoom has 3 more on it, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here, and then HJB has 2 more people. Is that what you're seeing there, Alice? So there's 7 on this side. So we'll go with what we have in line. I knew we were going to go over the 40 count that I originally had. So let's see, that was that side. So now we are at the HJB. So there's 2 people at HJB. Come on up.
Yep, there's someone there.
Hey. I'm Bella Lofton. I'm a freshman. Can you guys hear me?
You're a little bit soft. If you could speak right into it, that'd be great.
Sorry, I'm like 5'10". So basically, I play volleyball at Lehigh High School on the junior varsity team. And wearing a mask last year was probably the hardest year of school for me, as if middle school isn't hard enough as it is. I didn't get to see any of my friends' faces, hardly. I've passed out in class. I've had teachers chase me down the hall just to get me to put my mask on, which I'm sure that it's okay for me to breathe for 5 minutes without a mask on. But even walking up the stairs at my school would make me lose my breath because my lungs were so restricted and I was I couldn't even breathe. And it was scary to me because I'm a student athlete. I should feel healthy, but I didn't because I was restricted. And it's not healthy for any of us mentally or physically to feel restricted like this and not to have any close friends. It's not okay, and it needs to end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name's Melena Lofton, and last year, I struggled a lot with masks,
because my teacher would come yell at me in the face saying, "You need to put your mask on right now." And I was like, well, that's like rude because like you're just yelling at me. And instead of like asking me to put my mask on, that's just not okay. And so I would ask her for mask breaks, and she would be like, "No, sorry, you can't have any. No mask breaks." Really rude of her. Already as it is, like hard enough for me for school, I had to sit all day, 6 hours at school, because I have to go to resource, and wear my mask. And I have hard time with math, reading, and writing, and so I just was miserable in my mask doing that. And I asked my teachers for a mask break, and they were like, "Nope, no, you can't do that." And I was like, well, that's stupid because I should have my rights, and I should be able to have somewhere to breathe. So I just thought that was kind of stupid, and I want to change this year to no mask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there's 3 people on Zoom, so we'll take those 3 people.
It kind of moved up to more, but you can want me to do 3 of them?
We'll do 3.
Okay. All right, John Ogden, if you'd like to unmute and proceed.
Sure, thanks. So my name is John Ogden, and I'm from Provo. I have 2 kids who are under the age of 10, and they can't yet be vaccinated. The Delta variant has changed the game. So a study of 50,000 COVID patients found that 80% have long-term effects, the most common of which are fatigue, headaches, attention disorder from brain damage. And then 10 to 30% have long COVID. And then those who are hospitalized have an average bill of tens of thousands of dollars. So I'm not worried about my kids dying from COVID, but I don't want to pay that kind of bill, and I don't want them to have long-term consequences. I hear people talking about freedom, but I'm not seeing freedom here. The 3 commissioners have all the power. I don't have the power to send my kids to school safely. They're too young to receive the vaccine, and the mandate ban takes freedom away from local schools. So I think the analogies to traffic laws and laws against smoking in public are appropriate, and I would want to be safely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 2 more from Zoom.
Okay, Sarah Polk, if you'd like to unmute and proceed.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share, I can only speak on my personal experience. I am from Provo, so I have a 15-year-old that was actually exposed last year at school lunch, and that is one thing I wanted to bring up. Now, if the kids are wearing masks, they're still not going to be masked all the time because they don't make them mask at school lunch or at recess. And when he got exposed, we had him tested and everything, and he didn't test positive for COVID. He didn't even get sick. He had a head cold for 2 weeks, and that was it. And then also, I wanted to bring up that he's only in kindergarten, and I feel like it should be our right as parents if our kids wear a mask or not. I thought she was too young to wear a mask, so I kept her home. Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well. She now is behind and has to repeat kindergarten, and so we have to put her back into kindergarten. I feel like with the mask thing, if parents want their kids to wear a mask, then that's great, and I'm all for it. But I also feel like it should be the parent choice if we want our kids to wear a mask or not.
Okay, thank you. 1 more from Zoom.
Oh, super. Okay. Lacey, I apologize, I don't have your last name, so when you go to speak, Lacey, if you could let us know your full name.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
My last name is Liu, Lacey Liu. I am from Pleasant Grove, Utah. I would like to address the constitutionality of this problem. There have been questions about this prior, and this has been brought up all the way to the Supreme Court, who are the only ones who actually can interpret the Constitution for all of us. And they said this in a question of whether mandates were constitutional or not. It said, there are manifold restraints to which every person is necessarily subject for the common good. On any other basis, organized society could not exist with safety to its members. Society based on the rule that each one is law unto himself would soon be confronted with disorder and anarchy. Real liberty for all could not exist under the operation of a principle which recognizes the right of each individual person to his own. It also states that the state has the right to invest local bodies for the purpose of administrating appropriate safeguards for public health and safety. So the claims that this is not constitutional to your liberties do not hold up with the people who actually can interpret the Constitution. I think it is the responsibility of the state who has given this authority to the county commissioners to do this, to protect the public health of all people. That is how viruses work. It's not something you get to choose for yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're done on Zoom.
I actually have one left.
You have one more on Zoom? Okay.
Go ahead or wait.
Go ahead and do the Zoom one on there.
Amber, if you would like to unmute, and if you'll also give us your last name.
Yeah, it's Amber Pincock. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I am also echoing parents that are would like to have the right to choose for our kids and the masks. I would like to just give you a little bit of my experience from last year. My oldest daughter, she has Lyme disease, which that means she is immune compromised. She attended Westlake High School last year as a sophomore, and when we first started school, she's had Lyme disease for about 3 years now, and she was able to go to school and also do competitive dance. It wasn't until this last year in August when our biggest concern sending her to school was the mask, as well as the chemicals that would be spraying in the classrooms each and every day. A part of Lyme disease, it's very complex, but one of the things is that breathing in oxygen and detoxing and exhaling out CO2 is just one form of detoxing that she needs. 1 month. She went every single day to school for 1 month, wearing the mask. Every day she came home with severe headaches. And then she ended up with extreme dizziness. After that 1 month, she could no longer get out of bed. She has been in bed for over the last over a year now. I know that her decline in her illness, I know that masks played a role in that. This is not healthy for her. It's not healthy for anyone, really. The idea that a mask is worn to protect everyone around us, I think there's plenty of studies out there to show that that is not true.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're back here. We've got 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Okay. Come on up one at a time.
Hi, I'm Chloe Barker, and I'm from Lehigh. And I did not like the masks at all. And I had a mask exemption, and I had to sit by myself, and it was not fun. My friends would be like, "Oh, I really want to sit by you," all that, and then my teacher would be like, "Guys, sit down. Guys, sit down. Guys, sit down." My at the last week of school, we didn't have to wear masks. It was really fun, and my friends were nicer, and I could see my friends' faces. We had all of the people in the whole entire school had an assembly, and we didn't have masks, and it was super duper fun because we could see each other's faces and we could sit down and talk to each other and see our friends' faces. And when I did have a mask, I had headaches and it would hurt my ears because the mask was too little for me, and if I did a bigger size, it would be too big, and it just wasn't fun with the masks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice job, Chloe.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Barker. I live in Lehigh. Real quick, thank you guys so much for protecting our constitutional freedoms. My daughter was one that just spoke and one that talked about French immersion. And her teacher emailed me. She's from France. She's terrified of COVID, and she's like 25 years old and doesn't have any pre-existing. And she told me all her health history and just said, I'm so scared. And I found this amazing study that wasn't that hard, but it was UNC and Duke did. They conducted, and they had, this is from their study, 11 school districts, nearly 100,000 students and staff open for 9+ weeks of instruction, tracking secondary transmission of SARS-CoV-2 within school. Infections were extremely rare. No instances of child to adult transmission were reported within schools. And so 0.0%. And it didn't happen. And we're putting so much on the kids. We do so much. Think about a divorce with these kids. If the parents are getting divorced, we're not like, it's your fault. It's your fault that the adults are suffering. It's your fault. That's the worst thing to do to a child. But we're in the same breath saying, it's your fault that her grandma died. It's your fault that teachers are saying these to their kids. It's your fault if my family, I've had my kids be told things like this, nieces and nephews be told things, neighbors. That's too heavy for a child. It's not their battle. We need to protect the children. A little boy was walking in my neighborhood who's my little friend. I talk to him all the time. Last year, he's walking by home from school. He didn't see me. I was gardening up by my front door, and I turned and I said, hey, Jackson. And he looked at me and goes, and grabbed his mask and covered his face. And it broke my heart. I'm like, whoa, this is not our relationship. That's what kids see as adults. So thank you so much for protecting our kids. This is so much bigger than just covering their faces. It's silencing them, and I really am grateful for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ricky Smith. I'm from Highland. First, I want to say thank you to Bill Lee for last year for trying to protect our kids. We saw it. We appreciate it. I want to just say, I think we can all agree, mask, no mandate, no mandate. COVID sucks. It sucks, and unfortunately, I think it's here to stay. There's going to be variants. It's just like the flu where there's a variant every year, and hopefully the flu shot helps, right? That's the goal of the vaccine. Personally, I don't want this mask mandate to trickle into a vaccine mandate. It's just a slippery slope that we don't want to have for our kids. Also, with the whole Delta variant, there are no tests to detect the Delta variant by itself. So the tests that people are getting are COVID tests, and they're calling it Delta. So even though there's an uptick, there's going to be cases for the rest of our lifetime. So I don't think that trying to get to a zero COVID is even a logistical goal. I also want to echo from someone else that said, I don't want the quarantine either. I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's good for kids to ostracize other kids. Also, with the mask mandate, there was a mask mandate last year. And so I don't understand why people won't send their kids this year if there was going to be the same mask mandate, if they didn't send them last year. So it doesn't make any sense to have the mask mandate if they're not going to send their kids anyway. I'm so grateful for you guys. I was giving you a woot woot in the back corner when I heard it was parents' choice. So thank you for sticking with that goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jeremy King from Linden. It's been really hard to sit here tonight and listen to both sides. I've always said that we approach COVID and this pandemic from our own personal experiences. Amy and I have 8 kids, so we're going to approach it a little bit different than maybe someone living with their parents that have conditions, right? And so I can't fault them for their approach. So I'm sitting here just listening to everything that's being said, and what's being played out here is being played out across the nation, right? It's just, we're seeing it right here localized, but it's the same discussions. And if we're empathetic towards the other side and we put ourselves in their shoes, we go, well, what's a good solution, right? Because I do not want my kids masked up, but I fully understand what I'm being told from these guys and their experiences. And I have to believe you guys have talked about creating a win-win for both sides. There has to be a place where they can go and be fully masked, where it's required to be masked for them. And I'm not saying that's in all the schools. Are there classrooms? Is there a wing? Is there a place where that is a mask zone? And on the other side, are there areas where it's a no mask zone, or optional mask, I should say, right? Because that's all I'm really wanting is the option. And you would probably say, well, logistically, that's tough, and wow, that's expensive. But then you look at like what this pandemic is costing and where we're headed as a country if we can't figure out a win-win solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Amy King from Linden. That was my husband. Like he said, we have 8 kids. Several of our kids have speech problems. So this year, when they would come home, they're like, nobody understands me. I can't understand the teacher because she's masked up. I do understand both sides. I have a high-risk son who has to be masked. Last year, I kept him home half the time, but mentally, he was a high schooler. I needed to send him. So he was stayed home half the time, and then the other half, one day he would go to school, so he kind of got both sides. I just feel I have to look at the pros and cons to things. And for my son, emotionally, he wears a mask, even though when the friends are not wearing a mask. He knows that he's higher risk of getting things. And to force everybody, I'm not forcing all of his friends to wear masks because he's compromised. It's just like if I had a kid with a high allergy to peanuts. I don't expect everybody in the class to not eat the foods that my kid can't eat. It's the same thing. I keep hearing this thing about the traffic and everything. We just have to do what's best for our kids, and that's what I'm doing. One kid has to wear a mask, the others don't, and emotionally, I can see it. I am an educator. I've been in the schools. I have a bachelor's in health science. So I see the difference, and I just think that they need at the end have a choice, and those that are compromised, they have the choice to go or stay home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Natalie Clausen. We live in Highland, and I wasn't planning on speaking when I came today, and this is the first time I've spoken out on this issue. And we're here with our kids, which is not easy, but they're the ones that we're talking about today. It's these children. And so it wasn't them. They've been sitting here for a long time, but they're the ones that this really affects. And it's really hard to see that they're the ones that we're trying to mandate this for are the children, when they're least likely to get it, and least likely to pass it, and least likely to have problems from it. I went to the county commission meeting in Salt Lake last week where Dr. Angela Dunn was there, and the county commissioners asked her how many children in Utah have died of COVID. And she said 0 children in Utah have died of COVID without a comorbidity. There was 1 child under the age of 12 who had another issue, but there has been 0 children. So I don't know why we have so much attention and we're doing this to our children. And then I saw earlier, the reason that got me up here is we saw, my daughter was yelled at earlier, and I know that came up. She was sobbing for the next 20 minutes or so, and she'll remember that the rest of her life. We are in a county commission meeting, and there was an adult who felt like she could single out a child and call her out in front of this entire meeting. What is happening in our schoolrooms to our children who are walking, and the teachers see them and call them out, and they are getting labeled, and they're getting sent to principal's offices. They're being treated as bad kids because they pull their mask down to breathe, and that's not right to do these kids. I have one son that I spent the year in speech therapy with him last year. It is so hard to do speech therapy with a kindergartner, with a preschooler, with a mask on. It's not effective. And my 8th grader saw her teacher at school and said, I don't know, after a full year of mask, said, I don't even know if that's my teacher. I said, go say hi. She's like, I've never seen him without a mask. I don't think it's him. So I appreciate your help. I want us to think about these children who it's really affecting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You get the last word. How about that?
Hi, well, I'm Tammy Choke from Linden, and I can be short and sweet because all of the points that I wanted to make have been made, and especially with what Ricky and Amy just said. This is a really sad situation that's going on. I appreciate you all listening to the people and, hearing both sides and everybody really does have valid reasons. I believe every child is important. And when people say, this is my child and they're sick and everybody needs to do this for them, the thing is, it's not going to work. Masks will not completely stop this. That's an invalid argument. And what about the people, that have depression and the suicides that have happened, the people that have unseen things? I do have a daughter that's immunocompromised, and I know the risks. And every situation, it's like things are bad. But, mandating it for masks for everybody across the board is not the way to go. It's not for the children. I appreciate that you guys know that. And either way, I know you're getting a lot of pressure from both sides, but people will be keeping their kids home from school. Whatever, if there is a mandate or if there's not, there's many people that will be on both sides. But I appreciate your time listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for this, for the opportunity to make, we're thankful for the opportunity we've had to listen to comments. That is the end of this portion of our meeting. We will now go into our closed meetings, and we thank you for coming and being a part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Goodbye.